Join us today as we start October by discussing horror movies, specifically a top 10 list.
In no particular order.
Yeah. All right, welcome back, folks. As we've mentioned a few times, we are, or at least consider ourselves, movie aficionados, or at least big fans of movies anyway.
Yes, it is.
Don't always necessarily going for all the fancy words like that, but
No, we are also definitely not movie snobs. So.
felt appropriate here for the very lowbrow topic we're about to discuss. So today, now that we're officially in October, and one of my favorite genre of movies is horror movies, we're going to be doing some top 10 lists. Also, hopefully, a deep dive into a couple of these in some later videos, probably like franchises and series. Today, we're going to be going with a top 10 list of the top 10, in no particular order, best zombie movies. These are by and large going to be American movies, but there is at least one exception on this list. No, two exceptions on this list. Sorry. There are three exceptions. This is the most international one I've got.
In our opinions as well, so.
Yeah, obviously. Now, some of these, I have combined a couple entries into single slots, and, this isn't strictly 10. I mean, there's 10 entries, but some of these I also count the remake or different versions.
Or the sequels.
Because it's difficult to really divide things up sometimes. So, here we go. The first, and this one actually is, in my opinion, number one, is Dawn of the Dead. Now, by that, I do mean the original. The remake should also be in this list, but I would not put it at number one.
Wait, which one is Dawn of the Dead?
That is the one in the shopping mall.
Ooh, that is a really good one. That is the quintessential zombie movie.
Yeah, pretty much. For those of you unfamiliar, and as we do the list, we're going to do a very brief little go over the plot here. Dawn of the Dead is the sequel to Night of the Living Dead, made by George Romero. He made both of those, as well as several other movies, which we're going to talk about before this is done, because several of his movies are on this list, because he's the king of the American zombie movies. It's notable on that topic. The original Night of the Living Dead uses the term ghoul, which is the actual mythologically appropriate term here. Because zombies up to that point were like Haitian voodoo zombies that do not consume the living, whereas ghouls are the reanimated corpses that consume the flesh of the living. It's the more appropriate term. And by the time Dawn of the Dead came around, there were several other knockoffs and other movies that come out, and people began calling them all zombies. Dawn of the Dead does actually use the term zombie once towards the end of the movie, which is kind of a running joke occasionally in some of these movies where they don't call them zombies. They have all kinds of other fanciful terms for them. But anyway, it takes place roughly at the same time as Night of the Living Dead, where the corpses of the dead are reanimating for reasons unknown and consuming the living, and the only way to stop them is to take out the brain somehow. So the original is it's set in a farmhouse secluded in the middle of nowhere. Dawn of the Dead is a group of people, the original is a group of people escape from Philadelphia, and they proceed to hide in a shopping mall.
They escaped Philadelphia in a helicopter.
Yeah, in a helicopter. They fly over, like seeing the Army and National Guard kind of shooting a bunch of zombies at one point, make some comments, and then eventually they realize, hey, this shopping mall's got a lot of stuff.
And we can land on its roof.
We can land on its roof.
We can barricade the entrances.
They realize we can get in. They realize, hey, this is a pretty sweet spot here. So they set the whole thing up, and they're locked in pretty good. One of them gets it in the process until it's down to three of them, and then the biker gang shows up to attack, and the finale goes through. So, yeah, it's the prototype for the hey, let's hold up in this place for resources that's not in the middle of nowhere, and hordes of zombies at the end. So, There's also some subtext about mindless consumerism because they
Yep.
speculate why the zombies are showing up, and they speculate that it's because it was important in their lives. So, now the remake is people intentionally going into the city from outside to hide in the shopping mall once they kind of collectively decide to do that. They're on foot and meet up with some other folks already in there. And the remake does a few things differently, notably the fact the zombies run instead of not the slow lurching zombies, they're running at top speed. And like I said, everyone's on foot, but you get to see more of the scale of the destruction in a couple shots towards the beginning of the movie, and a little bit involving like they're stuck in the mall, and a guy who runs a store at the edge of the parking lot of the mall is the guy that runs the firearms store, and he's out there. And they're trying to get to him, and they got to get past the zombies. Their big plan is to get to a boat to sail to an island that there's not supposed to be any people on. Spoiler alert from the from the end of the movie. Well, there used to be people there. There's zombies now, and probably nobody survives. Which is also a staple of the zombie genre. Is usually everyone dies. So that's a number one. Number two, having said all that, is not. Oh God, sorry, excuse me, voice going in and out now. Is not Night of the Living Dead. It is Return of the Living Dead. Now, that's my personal opinion on this because Return of the Living Dead is like the ultimate black humor zombie movie. It's an excellent zombie movie, but man, there's some dark humor involved. Like it opens talking about how all the events you're about to witness are true, and none of the names and faces have been changed or anything.
Yeah.
And at least I personally don't remember Louisville, Kentucky being nuked over the 4th of July weekend in the early 80s, but maybe it was. I don't know.
Also, like,
Last time
whole thing happens because of military blunder.
Yeah, yeah. And so this movie references Night of the Living Dead, saying that the events of Night of the Living Dead actually happened, just differently, and the corpses are in the basement of the medical supply company thanks to a military screw-up. And yeah, so the new guy is being shown around by the guy that's been there for a while, and he shows him the container, and container ruptures, gas gets out.
It ruptures because he's like, it's just military grade steel.
Yeah.
Kicks the barrel and
Yeah. The new kid's like, should we really be messing with these? And he's like, do these things leak? He's like, leak? Hell no. These are made by the Army Corps of Engineers. Hits the side and crumples in. Gas pours out everywhere. Well, the gas is what reanimates the corpses. Well, it's lethal to living people. So they get a big lungful, and before the end of the movie, they turn because they die first, then they turn. But yeah, these zombies are like ultimate nightmare scenario zombies. They can run, they can think, they can talk.
isn't
They are pissed off and in pain because they're dead, and the only thing that alleviates that is consuming human brains. Which this is the movie where the whole zombies and brains thing comes from. And so
because the one guy, the newbie's going after his girlfriend, going, "I just want to eat your brains. Let me eat your brains."
And as the movie progresses, the zombies are able to lure more police and emergency personnel in by getting on the radio and calling for backup. And then they swarm them and ambush them. And in the end, once they get a hold of the military and they tell them everything, well, their only choice is to nuke the city. Well, part of the city. And of course, a nuclear weapon destroys things by burning it, which is what set everything in motion earlier in the movie by them burning one of the corpses to release more of the gas, which mixed with the rain clouds to create acid rain to reanimate the corpses in the cemetery.
Yep.
And so then the movie ends with the general talking. It's like, oh, the president's supposed to be there tomorrow. He kind of laughs like, no, we wouldn't want that to happen, would we? And obviously, it's more zombies is what it's alluding to. And, well, the end credits kind of imply that's probably what happened. The sequels, not so much. There are 4 sequels to this movie. Number 2, none of them are on this list. But just briefly, why? Number 2 went too hard into the comedy. Number 3 went way too hard into the black. Like, it's devoid of comedy. It's just a super serious, bottomless pit of a movie. 4 and 5 are just bad. I don't know how they ever convinced Peter Coyote to be in them, but they're bad. So do not watch them. It's Necropolis and Rave to the Grave. Unless you just have to know what a movie where people taking what they think is ecstasy but is really the zombie gas would turn into zombies would be like. Don't watch it. It's bad. I did you a favor on this one. I took the hit for the team. They're both terrible. Don't watch them. 2 and 3 are at least watchable. Just
I'm pretty sure he'll talk me into watching all 4 of the sequels eventually.
God, I don't even know if I own 4 and 5. Like, if I did, I bought them from the video store on the cheap. And I don't know why. So anyway.
Complete the collection.
I guess. So moving on, number 3 is Night of the Living Dead. And by this, I do mean either the black and white from the 60s, the original by George Romero, or the color remake that I want to say Tom Savini had a major hand in. They're both excellent. Both have essentially the same plot. The main difference is in the original, the character of Barbara basically sits around on the couch through most of the movie until she gets eaten. Whereas in the remake, she pulls herself together and is the one who points out, like, hey, the zombies are moving so slow, we could just walk past them. We wouldn't even have to run. We can just walk at a brisk pace and we'll be just fine. And so she's the character that has sense in the movie. Ben, if anything, is more compassionate because he's concerned about Harry Cooper's daughter when he really shouldn't be because Cooper is a jerk. And things end up a little bit differently. In the original, Ben, I should note, the original is known for the fact that Ben, one of the primary characters, was played by a black man.
Who survives to the end of the movie.
He survives the end of the movie where he's mistaken, well, presumably he's mistaken for a zombie. It's kind of left up in the air on that.
Yeah.
It could have just been a, hey, good old boys, here's the black guy.
Or it could have been, hey, there's movement in that house, shoot it.
Yeah. So there's implications no matter how you want to look at it. There's definitely, and he wasn't intentionally cast as a black man. He was the guy that they thought was best for the role. And then the dynamics kind of developed from there.
Yep.
Whereas obviously in the remake, they intentionally cast Tony Todd of Candyman fame as Ben. Now, in the remake, he does not survive. Whenever they get to the house the next day, they cut open the basement and he is a zombie. Cooper survives. The guy in the basement, the white guy with the daughter and the wife in the basement, he survives, and the woman shoots him and kills him. Because before she left, Cooper and Ben had a shootout with the zombies pouring in everywhere because his daughter had come up and she was a zombie and Ben was going to shoot her. And, he does. And then Cooper's like, that's my daughter, and shoots Ben, and that's why Ben dies because he bleeds out. So, yeah. But like I said, both are very worthwhile. They're the progenitor of the whole series. Neither one answers any kind of questions like why this is happening. The original version has some guesstimates in the background, but future movies in the series shoot them down. So then going on to number 4 is Shaun of the Dead, our first international entry.
Glorious movie.
Shaun of the Dead is as much comedy as horror, if not more so. I'm given to understand they initially had a zombie movie and then injected all the comedy into it, which is, if that's true, that's why it's a functioning zombie movie, but also really funny.
Yeah.
So, very much a product of being self-aware of other zombie movies that came before, because there is even a conversation at one point whenever Shaun and Ed are getting ready to leave. Ed's like, well, where are the zombies or something like that? And Shaun's like, well, they're over there, but we're not going to use that word. He's like, what? He's like, the Z word, zombie, because most zombie movies don't call them zombies. And so there's a little joke in the movie about that. And then towards the end of the movie, someone else calls them zombies in a very tense situation, and Ed's sitting there, he's like, we're not using that word today, and so you get a bunch of stuff like that in the movie. So yeah, those are the kind of things you run into in that movie. And, jokes about things that you see all the stuff building as it's coming. Like, you see random military trucks driving around. You hear about rage-infected monkeys escaping. That's a shout out to another movie that's going to be on our list here. An asteroid headed towards the Earth, but just a bunch of stuff like that in the background. I don't think you ever actually hear what caused it, but yeah, you just see all these.
Asteroid heading towards the Earth, you say?
Yeah, that is from the original Night of the Living Dead. They talk about a probe that went to Saturn or Venus, had some unknown form of radiation, so they blew it up on its way back, but momentum carried it to the atmosphere anyway, and it crashed somewhere in Pennsylvania.
I thought it might have been reference to Life Force.
No. Life Force is a wild trip all on its own.
Yes, it is.
So then, at number 5, we have Zombie 2. Now,
I've never heard of this movie.
You're probably wondering, what about Zombie 1? Well, Zombie 1 is the overseas title for Dawn of the Dead. Zombie 2 is actually a prequel, but since they called Dawn of the Dead Zombie, they couldn't call it Zombie 0 for some reason. It's meant to be an explanation for how things are happening. Voodoo zombies is what they go with, by the way. And, ancient curse and all that jazz. So that movie starts with them finding a boat in New York Harbor. There's a walking corpse on board, bites one of the police, corpse falls into the water. Now, I first watched this movie with my cousin. I told him, I was like, you just saw the end of the world. That's it right there. We'll come back to that at the end of this little spiel. So, some people go down to the islands in the Caribbean. And yeah, it turns out there's zombies on the island. This movie is known for 2 scenes. One, an eye gouging scene, where this person gets pulled into like a wooden thing right there. That's like a big thing in Italian horror movies, like eye trauma and stuff. There's a whole genre of Italian horror movies. Once they got done making westerns, they all jumped over to horror. Spaghetti horror. So
Spaghetti westerns are great.
Spaghetti westerns are great.
150-degree weather and you're wearing a leather overcoat.
So the other is a moment where a zombie fights a shark underwater. And if I recall correctly, the zombie emerges the winner. Turns out it's easy to win whenever you're willing to just tear chunks out of your opponent and are capable of doing so.
So zombie shark.
We never see any other zombie animals, so maybe. It's kind of hard to... Could go either way. Also kind of surprising because zombies in the Romero movies only attack warm-blooded animals. That is kind of a plot point. Like a very, very distant background plot point, but it is one. Because they do, in Night of the Living Dead, start eating the other creatures outside. Like they start digging up worms and stuff. But yeah. So anyway, that's what Zombie 2 is all about. Voodoo zombies. So, end of the movie. The last few folks are on a boat. They escape the island. They get close to New York, and there's a warning telling everyone to avoid Manhattan Island because it's being overrun by the undead. Because of what we saw at the very beginning of the movie. And the last shot of the movie is the zombies going across the Brooklyn Bridge, which I think doesn't actually work based on what they said on the radio, plus the traffic is still going both ways full speed. Just ignore all that. Couldn't get filming permits, shut down traffic, I assume. So, next, another international entry, Train to Busan. This is the beginning of the Korean zombie genre, which actually has several entries now, including a TV series on Netflix called We're All Gonna Die or something like that. All of Us Are Dead. Something. It's good. You should watch it. But I only did movies on here, not shows. But you should watch that. So Train to Busan is a guy trying to take a train to Busan with his daughter. And at the beginning of the movie, we see a guy hits a deer in a truck. The deer is clearly dead. And then, gets back up and shambles off. So definitely undead animals in this one. But the Korean zombies move very differently. They're very, I can't even begin to, kind of do it, but they move differently. And they're fast. They're running zombies.
Do they move somewhat like Pennywise at times?
Kind of. They go they run chest first, like an anime character.
Oh, like Naruto.
Yeah, and they also spill over each other with limbs flying every which way and just form giant masses of zombies rolling towards things.
Okay, Naruto mixed with World War Z.
Kind of, yeah. So, It's good, very good. I've only ever seen subtitled versions. I'm sure there is a dubbed version by this point. There probably has to be, maybe. This movie does have a sequel. It is not in this top 10 list. It's watchable, but it's not top 10 worthy. But yeah, also, this movie has made me realize I'm watching way too many Korean things because I've started to recognize these people in other shows now. So,
Cool.
for those of you who don't know, the main character in this is also in Squid Games as a character that we only see in like the first and second and last episode of the series. He's not one of the contenders. He presumably will be in the sequel series, I'm assuming, because he plays a kind of important role.
He's the guy who rigged it all up.
No. If you watch the series, you know who that guy is. It's not this guy. So anyway, like I said, it's really good. It's different. You know, it's the running zombies. It's everyone stuck on a bullet train, and like some of the cars are filled full of zombies and some of them aren't, and people are trying to get from one end of the train to the other end of the train. Now that they've rescued some people back here, and the train's having to deal with, okay, let's stop here and see if we can get any help. And you know, like the station's potentially been overrun. Plus, there's the zombies on the other parts of the train. You know, it just a bunch of stuff like that. It's very different from the American movies. Very much worth a watch. Okay, going on another foreign entry, and I'm sure someone in the comments is going to point out these are not technically zombies, but I don't care. 28 Days Later. This is one of the movies that helped reignite the zombie genre approximately...
That's the one with Cillian Murphy, right?
Yeah, approximately 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. It would have been this, the remake of Dawn of the Dead, and for better or worse, Resident Evil, that really, like, got the zombie genre going again.
What's his
And
name?
then The Walking Dead took off from there. But yeah, so 28 Days Later, they're not technically zombies. They're still alive.
They're rage monsters.
It's a rage virus, and their whole purpose is to spread it, not to kill people. Because if you pay attention, I don't know if they actually kill anybody that you see. They intentionally try to get them and get their juices into them through spit, or they cough a bunch of blood or something, and turn them into other rage monsters.
Or in one of the sequels, a kiss.
Yeah, someone that's like the Typhoid Mary, essentially. She's a carrier, but she's immune. So yeah, I didn't put the sequel on the list because it's got a few issues in my opinion, but it's very watchable. It's 28 weeks later. If you want to see Idris Elba and Hawkeye deal with a zombie virus.
Well, in 28 Days Later, you're getting to see Destro, Doctor Who.
Yeah, and Cillian Murphy and
Ninth Doctor.
Yeah, Brandon Gleeson. Is that the big guy? The dad.
Yeah.
And the woman that's in it also is the woman that plays Moneypenny in the newer Bond movies.
Cool.
That was one of the earlier things she was in, at least in the American cinemas. For all I know, she was in like 800 shows on the BBC before that.
Probably.
Possibly. So yeah, it's pretty good. It's, you know, a guy wakes up from a coma, doesn't have any idea what's going on, finds out that basically the world ended while he was unconscious, and eventually runs into some monsters. Some people save him. They go to his house, found out his parents checked out whenever everything went to hell, and then they lose one of the people in the group. Then they hook up with a couple other people, and then they decide they've got to get out of London because it's too overrun and they're running out of supplies. And so they head out in the countryside, following this radio signal that eventually leads them to the mansion where some military members are holed up.
With Destro in charge of them.
Yeah, it turns out they have some very awful intentions towards the ladies in the group because they realize that, well, the British Empire isn't going to rebuild itself, so... And all dudes can't do that either. So I'll let you folks figure out what I'm getting at there. And, yeah. So then they have to escape from there. So it turns into like a not haunted mansion, but
Psychological thriller at that point.
yeah, it's got overtones of the Resident Evil, the first Resident Evil game at that point. Not the movie, the game. So anyway, it's good. Like I said, the sequel's watchable. It's just not top 10 worthy.
Hey,
So
Resident Evil movies aren't on your list.
the Resident Evil movies are not on this list because they, first of all, they're not purely zombie movies. There's all the other monsters too. But second of all, I'm gonna lump them into like action horror.
Our top 10 video game based movies.
I don't know if we can find 10 that would be on that list.
See,
I mean, we can do.
when there's not 10 good ones to put on that list, you put
we can,
10.
Like we can do the 10 best ones, but that doesn't mean they're all going to be good.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'll put it to you this way: if somehow Super Mario Brothers finds its way onto the list, we've hit a problem.
yeah.
It's good in all the it's good as a bad movie. It's not good as an adaptation.
Double Dragons, we've hit possibly a problem. It was better than Super Mario Bros.
Maybe. All right. So going on here, we have Day of the Dead. That's the third entry in Romero's series, and that's where you find out just how screwed everybody really is.
Is that the one with the underground base?
Yes, that's one of the underground military base in Florida. Notably, the only one of these movies he made that's not in Pennsylvania. There's a whole deal. I might do a video on it sometime talking about it, but like he's from Pennsylvania. George Romero actually used to work on Access TV. Did some work for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood before it went to PBS, I believe.
Cool.
Yeah, there's a whole TV and movie like subculture from Philadelphia that younger people like us. I say younger, compared to people that were around like the 60s and 70s. We are younger than them. We're not young. They would know this kind of stuff. There's a whole like movie and TV show culture there that existed at the time. Like several shows from PBS originated there. A lot of people got like their foot in the door for movies by working for those companies. Like George Romero's one of them. There's several others. There are a number of characters like Joe Bob Briggs and Elvira that do like shows along with watching the movies, horror movies. A lot of those folks originated from that area too, and still do to this day. So, like I said, we might do a video on that someday. But anyway, Day of the Dead. It's the third movie in the series. For the longest time, it was the last one because it came out in the 80s, and it wasn't until the 2000s that another one came out. Day of the Dead, like I said, that's where you find out just how bad off everybody is. The doctor in the movie estimates humanity's outnumbered approximately 400,000 to 1 at that point. So, screwed with a capital S. The main characters are hiding in a military bunker underground. Turns out that a chain link fence can hold back an absolute horde of zombies. That's all it takes.
Yeah, it was put up by the Army
Corps of Engineers.
Yeah,
exactly. And this is where that little tidbit I mentioned earlier about the warm-blooded animals comes in, because they take the helicopter in, land on the mainland at one point, and start yelling on the bullhorn, and you see alligators freely roaming around. The zombies aren't messing with them. Probably for two reasons. Number one, they're cold-blooded, but number two, they prefer to eat dead things, so they're probably eating the zombies.
Yeah. They like to eat dead, rotten things.
Yeah, because they can't chew. For those of you that don't know, they can clamp spectacularly, but that's all their muscle power
They will
there.
Kill something, drag it underwater, stuff it in a hole somewhere, let it rotten up, and then eat it.
Yeah. So, yeah, the movie progresses. The whole military dictatorship thing kind of falls apart, and eventually several of the characters start fighting it out among themselves. One character just opens up the door and lets a bunch of zombies in. The other characters make a run through the tunnels that they have that are also full of zombies that they're using for scientific research, and they leave the door open there too. And so the few military guys that are left have to shoot it out, and they don't make it. the main doctor has trained one of the zombies though and named him Bub, and he has it so that he like can answer the phone, or like mimic it anyway, and he can salute and things like that. And in the end, he shoots the main military guy, and then when the guy's surrounded by zombies, Bub points the gun at him and then stops and doesn't shoot him and lets the zombies tear him apart instead. So it showed definitely recognition because he knew that guy killed the doctor.
Yeah.
So it was a vengeance thing for Bub.
Like, I'm not going to shoot you. I'm going to let you die more painfully.
Yeah, and he does. It's very bad for him. And then the other three escape in a helicopter and go to a tropical island somewhere, presumably to live out their lives. We never find out. But yeah, so that's that one. And then Land of the Dead at number 9. That was whenever Romero came back. Got some studio backing. This one actually has some star power in it. It's got Dennis Hopper, John Leguizamo, a few other people. Asia Argento, Dario Argento's daughter. And I can't think of the main guy's name. He's a Canadian actor. He was in The Ring. Sorry. But yeah, so it's supposed to take place in Philadelphia, but I'm pretty sure it's filmed in like Toronto or some Canadian city. It's like clearly not Philadelphia, but since no one knows what Philadelphia looks like unless they live there, because it's not a popularized city in movies.
Like New York?
Yeah, like New York. People know it's not, or whether or not it's New York. But this is different. It's hard to tell. But if you know what to look for, you know this is not the city. So humans have set up like a big elaborate kind of fortress wall deal around it, and Dennis Hopper runs the show. They have a big tank-like truck thing they send out to go get supplies.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, and they've begun to figure out, they've noticed the zombies are kind of getting smarter, like they see them like going through the motions of what they did when they were alive. Idris Elba plays the main zombie. Doesn't have a lot of lines. It's pretty much the pinnacle.
Does get a gun, though.
He does get a gun. Because the zombies figure out how to use the tools and, like, come and fight. So, yeah.
They kill the armored truck convoy thing, kills a bunch of zombies where Idris Elba's shambling around. And he's, I guess, conscious enough to be like, revenge?
Yeah, because like he tries to get him to duck because the humans have figured out they can use fireworks to distract the zombies because it's big bright lights in the sky, and so they're setting off the fireworks, and he's like, "No,
don't look, no."
And then they all get shot up, and he's able to get a gun from one of the guys and shoots one of them, I think, and that starts him like getting them to rally to go attack.
Yeah, he starts toward following the truck.
Yeah,
and other zombies with a herd mentality just start following him.
Yeah, and like Romero's other movies, there's a bunch of subtext. This one's classist kind of stuff, the elites living in their gilded tower and the everyman in the street and the zombies. So, yeah. But overall, good movie. Tom Savini gets a minor cameo as his character from Dawn of the Dead, only now as a zombie, for the leader of the biker gang.
Yeah, nice.
So, yeah, he shows up there at the end, like splits a dude in half with his machete. But yeah, it's pretty good. Very gruesome, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Romero has 2 other movies that he made. They were direct to DVD. They're very watchable. I do own them. Right off the top of my head, I couldn't tell what the titles are, unfortunately. But they're very watchable. All of his movies are kind of loosely associated because I think different studios back different ones. So there's a character in Land of the Dead. He's an army guy who watches the outpost that's outside the city where the truck has to park before they go under the river to get into the city. His character, you see him in these other 2 movies. He's a cameo in the first one, and then he's the main character in the second one. And it's supposed to loosely explain his backstory winding up in the city. Kind of, even though I think he has a different name in 2 of the 3. But it's definitely the same guy. Romero said, yeah, it's the same guy, just ignore the name thing. So the other ones, one is students are out filming a horror movie in the woods when all of a sudden the radio's like, yeah, the dead's coming back to life, like the world's ending, folks. And so they've got to like try to get home, and That one's interesting. You get to meet an Amish guy killing the undead at one point.
That's a found footage style one, isn't
Yeah, that
it?
one's a found footage style. Then the other one's directed as a movie, but it's all that's the plot. It's them
Yeah.
going there. Then the other one is they go to an island where it's supposed to not have any zombies, and well, they did.
Yeah.
And so then it had some crazy people too. But yeah, so they're watchable, just not top 10 list. And then the last one is a movie that has like 10,000 different titles. The one I know it has is Hell of the Living Dead. I think it's also called City of the Living Dead. And seriously, it has I'm not joking, probably has at least 6 different titles. Probably more. This is what happens with foreign films. I chose this movie because it stole the soundtrack from Dawn of the Dead. So it has the same soundtrack by Goblin. I say stole. I'm sure they actually paid for it because they didn't get sued into oblivion. Approximately 1/3 of the movie is wildlife footage from New Guinea, where it takes place. But essentially, it's these companies have built these centers around the world in like the like third world, and there's an outbreak at the very beginning of the movie in one of these centers where zombies start popping up. And at the end of the movie, you find out that was the whole point. They were built there by corporations in the first world to release the crap, so the third world people would all just eat each other and empty out the continent of Africa and like the islands around it and everything. So yeah, it was all intentional. So like they like a special like a commando force and this female reporter like are trying to fight their way to this place. And once they get there, like the woman figures out what's going on, and she just like randomly starts expositioning and going deeper and deeper into the facility where there are clearly going to be more zombies. And there's like a guy trying to like, hey chick, let's leave, and then they get eaten. And like the way she goes is just graphic beyond belief. Probably the most graphic zombie kill I can think of. That's the main reason it's on this list. But yeah, so if you can find this, and you're willing to put up with, like I said, lots and lots of wildlife footage, then random cannibalism footage and fake, I assume, and then the woman walking around topless randomly for one point in the movie, where she's like, hang on, I know all about this tribe, and then she shows back up with war paint, and she's like, I'm of this tribe, and it's like, I don't know that you really had to do all that, but okay. So yeah, yeah, that one's good. It's worth a watch. But yeah, end of the movie, absurdly graphic. Like, no one's surviving that. So yeah, that's my top 10 zombie movies. So give them a watch. Tell me what you think. And yeah, we've got some other top 10 lists we're working on, horror related, and once we're out of October, we'll do other non-horror related stuff too. But
yep, November will be top 10 Thanksgiving movies.
Are there 10 Thanksgiving movies?
I don't know.
I can think of 2.
Charlie Brown?
Okay, 3. I forgot Charlie Brown. Sorry. Okay, so Charlie Brown. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which, despite all appearances, is not a Christmas movie. It's a Thanksgiving movie. You would swear it was a Christmas movie if you didn't ever hear them say it was for Thanksgiving, though. And number 3 is the fake movie Thanksgiving that only has a trailer for it that played between the 2 Grindhouse movies, Death Proof and Planet Terror. Look it up. It's not at all safe for work. At all. Would make an awesome horror movie, though. I wish they would make it like they did Machete, but we'll see. So anyway, that's our first shot at a top 10 list. A little bit longer than I thought it was going to take, but here we are. We'll work on that. So hope you guys enjoyed that. And stay safe out there, especially you folks in the path of the hurricane or in its wake. Definitely don't do anything foolish, like avoid the floodwaters, keep yourself safe. So you guys be safe out there. Let us know what else you want to hear about. Talk to you later. Okay.